Thank you very much, Milosh, for A, handing the game over, and B, reminding me how old I am. I always love that. I'm always a fan. We
call him
are...
hold. Just hold the reverse Uno card up.
Can't, because he likes that. He likes being known as the grandfather of Siege.
I look like Cade, look at me.
He does.
I look like Maestro.
Yeah. Anyone with a beard that's older, they're like, Milosh?
Oh, that's me, yeah.
That's not my name. Have you been enjoying the new dialogue that happens between operators in the game?
I've seen a few. Some pretty sassy operators, though, has to be said. There's some proper, like, you'd slap them if they said that to you kind of folks as well.
Well, if they had it, you know, if they were special forces operative, they would get away with a little bit more, I think.
No.
I wouldn't jump into an immediate scrap, but... Anyway, NIP versus Liquid. Names that have obviously gone against each other a lot in Org. Different rosters, multiple times as it was said before here. But still, you look across this lineup and, you know, you're seeing Nast, you're seeing Pino, you're seeing Ask to some degree. It's been there for quite a while now. You're seeing how Wizard has bounced around.
They brought him back. Ask was let go of the team last year and they brought him back again.
Yeah, so there's truly still deep veins, deep roots of a tree that run across this showdown. And as we hurtle further along our boxing card, the games are definitely heating up. And this one, it was sort of said before, right? Liquid have had Trial by Fire as their opening two games. This, I think, also extends into the category with how NIP have been able to play so far. It's been late wins, but it's been 2 wins against the Black Dragons we know are playing pretty well right now, and a Furia that, again, putting in decent showings.
NIP, I think if they win this against Liquid, then you have to start considering, they could be top 4 team, couldn't they? They really could be. For Liquid, you need to get a win. Some way, shape, or form. The win needs to come. You can't walk away after the 3rd play day with still in 0 points. However, for Liquid, not looking too strong as they've already lost that player who would be sat deep in Cocktail, but thankfully, though, they have been able to get the trade as resets on that mirror. Takes out the Nomad. This clash, though, that's going to be the issue that... I'm sure we said that. How many times have we said that the clash is going to be the issue? It just is for so many teams. This operator can just walk around, can hold down areas such as Piano. There's not much you can do against that. You even have the mirror window as well, so you're almost building up that kind of onion, those different layers that you have. You just keep peeling away, but there's just so much that you have to go through. You just can't really get it all done in time for the attackers, and there you go, Clash. Just see what I mean? Like, what are you supposed to do? Look at this.
I mean, I think it's the thing about it, it's the Clash in this position and this place as well really demonstrates what a horrible power they now seem to hold as well. And ooh, that is another trade. Immediately off the back, we still keep ourselves level in terms, but Fantasy does hit the ground. That now puts a lot of pressure here as the Clash just turns around. It's another trade situation. Now they have somebody down, they're looking for the fight, but it's the tuck-in that actually doesn't net anything from the bathroom. Now they know where the player is. They're still being electrocuted. They get 1. There's the second. Resets.
Wow.
Logs out the round. And what a strange pace to start us off.
He almost thought that NIP were going to go like really fast because they'd got that kind of first pick onto the guy in towards Deep Cocktail, but then the pace just slowed down and then the Clash got involved in Piano. Look, I will say Liquid just playing the meta, playing the correct operators that make Cafe really, really strong. You look over towards that Piano, you've got mirror windows and Clash that you just, like, you can't do anything again. I have to give credit to Liquid. They're playing what they're supposed to. And yeah, now it's over to NIP to see how they respond after losing the first round.
Apologies, I was taking a drink. When you handed
Stay
them back
hydrated,
over to
everyone.
me.
Everyone have a hydrate.
You gotta stay hydrated. It is very warm where we are. I'm assuming it's very warm where everybody else is as well.
Yeah.
But strange page opens us up. Liquid, as it was said on the desk, this is going to be their preferred path. Getting themselves set in. And some of this sort of defensive groundwork, obviously they only took 1 attack in their opening half against FaZe. Then they took no attacks in their opening... Oh, they took 1 attack, sorry, in their opening half against W7M. It's the first time they've been able to sort of get themselves propped up here. If they can push themselves to what is, 3 rounds, not on the trot, but then they're sort of matching their performances across the previous, and then they have so much better momentum, right? They're not going into the end of a half 1-5 down, which has been unfortunately a curse that it doesn't matter who you're up against. It's never easy to bounce back from.
Yeah, again, Liquid won't care just where the rounds come from as long as they equal a win. They're not the stage. Similar to what we kind of look at for any big team who kind of starts off the week in a bit of a slump. The second week is so important because it will really define how the rest of your season is going to go. Yes, Liquid have lost the first 2 opening games, so that doesn't mean that they still can't go on and push in towards that top 4. Of course they can have a run, but they have to start somewhere, and I think for Liquid, they would hope it is going to be today. I think that would be a great measure for Liquid win, that they walk away with 0 points after the first week, and then the second week they could take 6 points. That could be realistic for them, and they're straight back in the race.
And that's the sort of setup as well, is that, the split between 7th to 6th, because of how the results have gone, is that 3-point marker. They could immediately be jumping themselves up, potentially above loss, depending on the round difference, if they do win this out as a 3-point, and, be knocking on the door, and they wouldn't be able to catch all the way up to Furia on the other side of that divide, who are in the positive of round difference, but still, it shows how quickly things can turn around this early on in the season. And you said it right, you can have a false start, you can have a bit of a dip in performance, but if you have both immediately at the start, you've almost written off the season, unfortunately, because it becomes really, really hard to start to bait your way back in. The cover of the smoke here on towards the VIP position. Now they are held in, but caught reloading as they slip their way on through. There goes the Fenrir, but they've made the motion happen. Pushed further and further back. Another grenade rolls the player as Pino puts some damage in towards the site itself. Now, they're held at bay, and a shotgun doesn't connect in the right way, but the lying down player Amaya is able to get him locked in now. Holding on as Diaz gets one more, levels things out. Wizard hits the dust, and it's an awkward situation right now because they still have VIP control. They don't have a proper route and run through, and NIP starts to just bite them back one at a time.
Oh. Yeah, NIP, pretty standard take from them, of course. Really risky, though, not opting to try and fight that player over towards VIP. But the VIP player didn't really do anything that round. He just kind of sat there. I think he lobbed the C4 at one point, and that was really it. Looks as though that we have a quick rehost, though, so hopefully we'll... Not again. No, not this again. But yeah, obviously for Liquid, you can see that they tried to play kind of retake. They had to go aggressive. They tried to swing onto the freezer door as they dropped for the freezer hatch, but again, was read into from NIP. And yeah, once you kind of get control of freezer, and especially in towards the sinks in that bunker area, there ain't a lot the defense can really do against you. So NIP understand the map well, understand their win con, which is clear over that position, put the pressure on, they have to plant. Didn't even get the plant off. Liquid realized that, and Liquid tried to retake, and they got punished because of that, because people were in the correct positions to hold them back.
Well, that, I was going to say, feels a lot shorter, but with still time frozen at the top, and it's decent traded rounds there. I think what we saw almost there was some good learning material for our earlier game of Cafe. Because I think we saw a lot of struggle in taking that situation of forcing the players out of what you could get control. And then also, most importantly, biting control back when things start to go away from them. And, different opponents, different setups, whatever. It is still lessons to be learned in generic. I think there was some very good fundamental ideas in what played out in that round. And then also adaptations. Now, obviously, we're in a technical pause. Things will hopefully spring to life sooner rather than later. but one apiece in that game of Liquids. You know, if so far across both the maps that they've played, they've only been able to pull 2 rounds on defense, but they've done it when they are already on the back foot, right? They haven't had as many opportunities. The sooner they can get to that 2-round marker, they might feel a bit more confident, because if they get there, but you know, if they get there in 2 rounds instead, and suddenly it's a 2-2 or it's a 3-2, it's probably just going to be more morally painful or emotionally painful even, because you know you've got to get to your attack where you have really struggled.
Just it feels weird looking at this kind of game, and you know, because I reference SI21. You know, where's Julio? Where is he? Why is he not there? Where's Psycho? You know, where's Kamikaze? Where are they all?
Where Julio?
It feels weird. It feels weird. There's the kills, and something that Liquid have kind of struggled with, and you know, whenever Paulu goes, all of a sudden the kills start to feel a little bit more difficult to find, don't they? Because you're so used to having him, but somebody needs to do it. Somebody needs to step up and fill that role. Obviously, we can have a bit of a discussion around Diaz, obviously coming in from NA. We've seen him there with Exit, with M80, with Oxygen, was his last stint, and now on to Liquid. It was one that certainly caught me by surprise whenever I heard that this was a move that was happening. Don't know how you feel about it, though.
I don't know. I think it's a broader sort of question. Yes.
You kept me on the edge just for I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know, I like to be problematic with this stuff.
Yeah.
And also, as I sort of read the production chat, I was, if I'm entirely honest, Demo, half listening.
Thank you. Story of my life.
But you know, I can give you more updates as that we're getting closer, theoretically, trying to figure it out. I've actually talked away what you even asked me.
I just asked the question about what do you think of Diaz, but you know, yeah.
Pretty good.
It's more the case of, you know, him coming into the system, because obviously,
Yeah.
yes, he's like, you know, Brazilian born, but obviously lived in America, played, you know, in the American teams, spoke English as his main form of comms. Now he's switching over to do full comms in Portuguese, obviously. So I think that's something that obviously he himself has to adapt to. And again, it's a lot of pressure coming into such a storied team like Liquid, you know? So I think there certainly is pressure there for him.
I actually do have good points
we'll
to
see
say
if he can
on
deal
the end
with
of this now. Well, I think one of the things that you have to take into consideration is the teams that Diaz has been on before, which is obviously OXG, you know, which says this sort of works, but the meat of it was with MAC, and that has always been a roster that has had a lot of attention to it. Different level of attention, because sometimes it's been sort of the
There's
players.
a Swedish boy in the mix.
Yeah.
Got a lot of attention to it.
You know,
and there's a Swedish man who brings attention to it. I know how that works.
And it's like even sort of before then, you've had things, and he's always been surrounded by sort of Portuguese speakers there as well. Obviously, previous coaching staff, previous players. But in the same sort of breath, I think he's used to a level of the pressure from the players' side of things and from that attention. But Liquid as an org brings something else in Siege. It's not that M80 don't. Yeah. M80 have obviously done great work, but
M80's very new.
Yeah, exactly.
Liquid is like, in terms of not even Siege, forget the Siege, as esports as a whole thing.
Yeah,
Liquid's one of the biggest, if not the. Do I dare say if the biggest?
That level of pressure is a very different level of pressure.
Yeah,
because suddenly, it's like if you're wearing, you know, you could play for a great team, but you put on, you know, one of the top teams of all time's jersey, and you're like, oh, this feels heavier, this feels different. And you know, that's something that's being worked out. But here they are playing still with greats, one apiece, and we continue our game demo.
We do. Obviously, Cafe is a map which we will see a lot of window playing already. I think we've seen that over towards the top floor, that certainly NIP were up for playing the window games. Not so much on the kitchen site, as you can imagine, but now as we move into our third bomb site, which is going to be our reading room and mining, again, you would still like to expect there'll be some level of window gameplay, because 9 times out of 10, as an attacking side, you will have to go above either which way you look at it. Defenders will go up here, they will set up site with a lot of vertical holes from above so they can defend the site from upstairs. Therefore, you have to go in and attack them from their foothold. Clash, Mira, I think that'll be a big running trend. Certainly throughout the game, I think both sides will want to try and use that operator as best as they can. Only just one more round until we'll probably see, I say the Clash will be banned out, should be banned out at some point. But, I mean, again, it just shows Cafe and the defense just really strong defenders for holding those windows. You know, yes, you've banned Azami and Castle, who speak for themselves in terms of what they can do in the heart of the map, being the piano, but then you still have a Clash and a Mirror to fall back into. Do we need a 4th ban? Is it too much to ask?
Is it time? Is it time to call for a 4th ban?
I wanted 4 bans originally, because I think they sent out a survey saying, like, oh, would you like to see the bans increased? I said it should be 4 bans rather than the 3.
We were part of the survey.
I thought it would be like, that's what I wanted.
Surveyed, you assume all the pros as well, and you know, occasionally there's a little peek behind the curtain. People are consulted about the changes that happen, guys. It's not just at the whim. You could say that happens most of the time, as it should. But how quick they are to action sometimes, and how quick the game can change. Sometimes it's just down to the meta as well. And, you know, 2 metas ago, maybe not even that, like a handful of updates ago, shields weren't as terrifying as they are now. And the questions of how many bans should come out, if shields were in their old state, you wouldn't see a double shield ban right up there in the top corner. And, well, it's Clash.
Yeah, well, I think whenever they added in Blackbeard, you know, at the time, 18 months ago, he wasn't like that. Obviously, Clash is same boat. You know, Clash and Blackbeard would never be bans. Well, maybe Clash the old time, but certainly now, with both of them receiving massive buffs throughout the past year, yeah, it's crazy.
Blinds pop off, and so do Maya and Fantasy trading out there. They're able to find one more Fantasy. Pulls out the pistol, and Wizard pulls out Maya. Ripping control here of the cocktail side, and the top floor is theirs. As C4 doesn't quite get the catch on the kill. The bullets do some of the damage. They knew they needed to step in here, but that's both C4s. Ripped, torn, and thrown. Now, it is just a gun game ahead of them here. Arse takes a bit of damage. They're doing the right thing. They're going for a bit of a retake, trying to hop over. Ooh, got the drone. He caught out some of the attention. More than happy to find this fight, but they're just sort of giving themselves options and routes here, and you can see the plan. Let them go down, we'll go up. It's too tough to watch internally. You'll just hand them everything. But they have to time it right. There's the scrap on the first, and IQ just kept on going and then turned their way back round. Leaves just a single player. But in a post-plant situation with a full read on where Arsk is, you can't really ask much of him there.
No. I think you're supposed to say, you know, pardon the pun. Get it? Because Ask is on liquid.
It's not pardoned.
Pardon the pun. Classic.
Oh, sorry, pardon the pun.
That's it. Obviously, NIP, in terms of how they kind of dismantled that top floor, it was just as though they were attacking the bomb site on top floor. That's usually the way teams will have that mindset. It's just then you kind of have to do an extra hop, skip, and a jump to get down towards the mid floor. But because of how well things went upstairs and they kept the number advantage to their benefit, it was so easy just to flood in, you know, just to get that final plant going down. So, yeah, really, really easy for NIP. Really good execute using the operators. Ying, for example, playing obviously pretty big. And because of that, Liquid have said, no Ying for you. NIP have said the same. You know what, Clash, you're out of here. So, yeah, bans make a lot of sense from both sides. Game on. We move.
It's the best bit of, obviously, the new system is the reactive bans. I remember when that was also sort of put forward and people were a little bit skeptical. I'll admit, I was one of those people. I was worried that it would break things up, but if I can be honest, Demo, I've grown to really like it. I think the ability to have reactive bans has introduced that extra sort of level of a game that feels like it's always developing. But I know I sort of said it on email the other day. I also like that some teams are hiding certain operators until rounds 5 and 6 on a sort of I say 5 and 6 4, 5 and 6 on a half, so it doesn't get caught up in the ban. So they can then start to try and go, okay, now we almost get to go to our A playbook, and it just develops a new level of thinking behind it. I don't know. I've grown. They've won me round, Demo.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I think the bans, yeah. Look, the bans, you know, it's just a case of being able to adapt. And, you know, Siege, I think, is a game that we love. The Prey teams who can adapt really well, and typically those are the ones who will lift the trophies. So it just plays into, you know, what Siege is already good at. You just enhance that even more so. And also, I suppose, if you constantly play an operator that is just rewarding you with so much, it must feel pretty good thinking, they've banned me, I'm too strong, they've had to nerf me.
Too good.
Yeah, a little bit of an ego boost.
Now with a minute gone, and a lot of this initial sort of structural work set up, the pressure has to come through here from NIP, and it's going to come around onto this swing pixel position. They're tucked comfortably enough, Nesk, but a bit too comfortable as Fantasy screams the way through. Diaz gets the trade out here from the side of Lumber and pulls back before White Window suddenly costs them their life. Now it is being watched, but only really by them, and they are that entire wing of structure support. They have somebody buried in towards Freezer, and Ask is underneath with a C4 as well. You can see that NIP, they're a bit cautious. They didn't just want to scream in on the back of that opening body. Instead, remeasure, reweigh, and redrone. The C4 is popped a bit early, doesn't quite get a catch on any player, but will give the game that, yes, we are watching you. And that might put a bit of a drive here for NIP to have to start doing something. Diaz and Pino find one apiece. Diaz just keeps going, burying people under Lumber. And with Maya getting one more, it leaves just Herds alone. Not
Makes
very
sense.
long.
Yep, has them dead and buried. Again, yes, you banned the Clash away, but the mirror windows still, you know, there as a bit of an issue, aren't they? Obviously for NIP, I think the Ying ban kind of hit them a little bit there, and it's more the case of if you're playing really well with the Ying and you're looking to execute and, you know, push deep in to site, you want something to try and put a bit of pressure onto the defense, but they didn't really bring an operator that would fill the shoes off the Ying. I would have looked towards an operator like the Grim, for example. Thankfully, look what gets brought in, though, from NIP. It is the Grim, so they still have one of those operators that we like to classify as the kind of execute-esque operators. I think Ying, Capitao, Grim are probably the three that you're looking at who can do those really, really well, because one thing they all have in common is they all force defenders to have to move in some way, shape, or form, which, as you know, is great for clearing people out and finally moving in for the plant. So, yeah, I think missing out on one of those operators probably did hinder them. So I hope to see that will, you know, be addressed and they do bring it in. Tease the Grim. They will pick onto the Capitao, so we'll see how that will work out for them.
Now, I complimented both the drive of the attack and how, in some regards, Liquid played this before, but as you said, it's the conversation of what is brought, how they'll respond to each other, and I'm wondering if Liquid might try and be a little bit more aggressive above. Doesn't really seem like it. I believe only a single outline is currently off the site itself, and instead going with the same sort of lockdown. Okay, maybe instead they'll be a bit more reactive towards the chance at the Freezer hatch drop. They did play against it, but it was almost a little bit too late, as they had already flooded their way in under the guise and surprise of everything that was going on with some well-placed and played grenades. So instead, NIP, they're happy to keep up the trends that they set for themselves before and start here on that top floor, just careening their way across into the free territory, slowly and steadily, but cautiously.
Yeah, minute gone. Nothing's really happened. No engagements as of yet, so certainly the defense are looking to play as reserved as they can. But the only issue, though, Fluke, with just sitting back, not wanting to get into any gunfights, is you give up a hefty amount off the map to the attackers. And this is now the issue that Liquid will have to deal with, is once the verticality starts coming in, hatches start being opened up, where do you hide? Where do you fall back into? For me, I think for Liquid, it is a case of you want to try and waste as much time based on your lineup. You know, you've got the smoke, you've got the Goyo, you're at the minute 20 mark. Is that going to be enough? You know, or NIP maybe going to move too slowly? You know, or are they going to just start ramping up here and start popping away a lot of that utility? And based on where the Twitches are right now, Luke, I think this utility is going to, get got pretty early on. So this leaves them with a lot of time to still get that plant down.
Yeah, it's just kind of turning into a gun game, and you're sort of sitting, watching, waiting, going, well, we're waiting. And at this point in IP, that they're free to do what they need to do. They have 50 seconds, loads of time. The vertical's been uncontested. We're going to C4 or anything. The grenade will pop around the corner for the chance at our first engagement, and the C4 was ready. Now they're trying to bait this out. So hoping they can catch it on the drop of the hatch, but they haven't entirely thrown themselves in yet. NIP, we said, being very cautious. There's the next grenade. It will force the C4 player off, and they are in and away. They're trying to find the Fenrir mine, and the C4 is shot out. Beautiful bit of cover, and that could be that one big moment. There's one, there's two, and it is just a pitch-perfect explosion. Pino from above. And Liquid just gave them so much to work with, and NIP said, thank you very much.
Yeah, just perfection, isn't it? Absolute perfection. I think the main thing there for Liquid is you just gave them way too much, didn't they? You know, right from the get-go, they didn't contest their own game. NIP's thinking, right, we'll get the gridlock in, immediately start ripping up all the fluorine. Got the Twitches in really early as well, you have to highlight. They popped the Goyos at about a minute to go, so it still left them with at least, 30, 20 seconds to go for that plant. Yeah, they just covered everything, and Liquid were just too predictable in what they did.
I think it's one of the things about it as well. You said it there, they didn't contest above. They didn't contest anything apart from the attempt on the drop of the hatch and then the plant. And you're sort of like, okay, well, if that plan fails, that is literally the last hurdle for the sort of NIP to go on. And yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So look at it, you'll be like, 40 seconds left. Oh, that's plenty of time if the kit goes cold on the site to still push towards that plan, right? If they had played a bait game a little bit earlier on, maybe cost some more drones a little bit higher and just pulled back and drawn something, they might have been able to make that 20 seconds left. And suddenly 20 seconds left is a different story. Bye. They tried to contest something. Didn't work. Was that outside? That blood is on the wall.
Yeah. Maybe a jump in? A jump out coming in from the mid-floor? I
mean,
at this stage, though, for Ask, is it a case where he's so desperate to get a kill that maybe he's trying too hard? I think we've all been there, haven't we? You're having a bad game and just nothing goes right for you because you're trying too hard to focus on getting a kill. Yeah, he jumped out of this window, it looks like.
I mean, it's not really how you sort of want to get your goings on. It puts you in this tricky situation. Now the team is obviously operating with a man deficit, but also at the same time, although it says 0-3, that's actually 0-5 because of the reset that happened across. Nesk is the same. In fact, will that be 0-6 technically? Resets gets 2 before Wizard.
Oh my!
Puts them down. Big moment. There's Cons finding Nesk and, well, there's a trade out on towards Lumber. Maya gets 1. And it just seems like NIP keep having these responses for Liquid.
I mean, a very weird round though, no? Like, still half the round to go and it's a 2v2. And this is mid-floor, this isn't top floor, bear in mind, everyone. And now we're left with just a Nomad and a Gridlock. Beats me, but I can only cast what's in front of me, I guess. right now, you're in a position where you have got no utility at all. It is gone for the attackers. And also, you don't have the kit. That would be my main worry. Who is going to remember to have to rotate and pick up the diffuser? Because that will need to happen at some point. Diaz and Maya, all they have to do is sit in their hands. Surely there's going to be some form of information, may it be from Valkyrie cameras or even just default BPs, whatever it is. They should have the advantage going for them just because the attack has nothing.
I was going to say, the fact that they're still shooting out the defaults on Pillar as well and, you know, catching all the Valkyrie cameras, it just shows how little was done because of how weirdly paced this round has been. There's no fault of the two flank watchers because it all seems to have happened right in the middle and wherever that C4 was thrown and landed, but still, Wizard just driving themselves through the corridor with a gun. Now there's a swing here that can happen on Fireplace itself. The other concerned around the bomb chassis. They're able to get some of the bullets towards it, but Hates that gets the end of one. Diaz gets the next, and slipping away. 8 seconds. We talked about this before. Sometimes you make the decision to run and hide, and sometimes you just play it out. They seem to have the intel, but they're not entirely sure.
Wow. Wow.
Woo!
Oh, what a messy round, though, really from start to finish. I mean, like I said, a 2v2 happened at a minute 30, so not the cleanest of Siege, but like I said, it's just, there wasn't anything going for the attackers there, was there? Just, they had nothing to go with. It was just the, the information game from Liquid that they had, and they could just play passive, they could run the clock down, yeah. Good stuff from them. So, we have an even split. I'm just trying to think who had, sometimes, yes, we have even splits, but sometimes you can kind of edge a team saying, they maybe played the better Siege. I think NIP probably had the better rounds, though. A lot of Liquids were really scrappy.
Yeah, I mean, speaking plainly here, NIP are generically across the board very, very balanced. They were playing that albeit slow at some points, very methodical. On the side of Liquid, Nesk and Ask together at 0-12. There is a lot of work that is being done by Resets, by Diaz, and Maya still shy of being even as well. They're 4-5 over the game so far. It kills on everything in this game, but look at how that last round ended. That is how those 3 rounds were pushed over the edge. The rounds that those players weren't in, that we didn't have the 1vX clutch from Resets, we didn't have these situations, they are ones where Ninjas and Pyjamas were just in complete control. And this is where I kind of worry going on to the other side, because A, we've seen Liquid Attack struggle before, as we talked about, but B, Cafe Dostoevsky, because of its sort of boxy manner, because of how you've got to start your ingress on the top floor, it's all going to be very calculated and timed. Those 2 players that you're sort of carrying the slack for a little bit in this game, that's much harder to do when you're on your attack.
Liquid in their lineup on the attack, and I mentioned before, you need some kind of hard-hitting operator to play into that removal of operators, and certainly the Capital will be one of them. Still plenty of util. We've got 6 grenades that they've brought to the table. Maybe lacking some burn, though. That may be the only thing. They may have to actually rotate over and start using some gridlocks to remove some of the Aruni gates. They didn't bring a whole host of flashbangs for that. Still looks as though that they're doing okay at the moment. And you see Ask having a slight issue there with the Aruni gate, thinking, do I waste the last helmet on it, or do I just keep it in the back pocket? Oh dear. We should have used it.
Removes Ask. And they are still an unfortunate statistic throughout this game. There goes the ace, the Selmas, the chance of getting the pressure on here across the top and forcing this player out, and now with the keeper barricades as well. I talked about this before with the bans, as Reset does find Pino.
I'm reloading.
This position, Con's also getting one with Wizard. Leaving just 2 left. This position with keeper barricades demo, this room is just a nightmare. Azami should not be allowed.
Yeah, I agree, but then again, would you like to push into mirror windows on those walls? Probably not as well. This is the issue. There's a lot of strong operators that you just have to go through. I think they're very fortunate that Clash isn't there either, but NIP will dig themselves in. Nesk able to get at least one, and he just strolls on into bathroom now. Nobody holding him, but it looks as though Liquid probably struggling with information in the auras. Fantasy able just to go for the swing, and Collins with another. Yeah, lack of information there for Liquid to play off that 2v4, but again, just the Azami inside of Piano. Like you mentioned, it's too strong. Way too strong.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well is obviously they lost the ace on the window. I'm not sure if it was Whiskey or otherwise, but it doesn't really matter because they lost them from that Azami, just swinging that position and putting that power and pressure in. Then from then on, you got to think, okay, well, do we have frag grenades to try and remove it? You have to go back to a bit of basics for it, which they didn't, and they've sort of paid a price. Nesk does finally break his kill deadlock, which I'm sure is a massive relief for him, let alone the rest, which means that maybe he can start sort of throwing himself in. If he does start to pop a little bit on his attack, we know full well what he is capable of. All quiet on the Cafe Dostoevsky front.
Mm-hmm.
Almost peaceful.
Not well. Wait until minute left and everything's going on.
Almost peaceful.
Obviously, for NIP, they had a lot of success attacking down here, and that's because Liquid played into their hands. Liquid didn't go for the roam. They didn't contest the areas of the map. I hope that NIP doesn't fall into the same kind of issues, because it's obvious that Liquid are going to go above. You look at their lineup, you've got the Ram, you've got the Sledge, flank protection's there as well. Twitch for the Goyos is always a nice pickup. They've got all the tools that they need to make this kitchen drop, or freezer drop, sorry, a success. So, in they go in towards the top floor. Sadly, Fluke, I'm just not seeing the contention in towards that mid floor, which I would have liked to have seen.
No, and I guess we talked about it before and how it could have been a better tool in Liquid's defensive arsenal. It might be the same thing here for NIP, but, maybe they can prove us wrong in a different way. To be honest, if I can talk about how things might be going wrong for sort of the entry game on one team, looking at Fantasy and Wizard, who have just stepped up and up and up, and obviously it's 6-1, 6-2, but they were 9-3 for Wizard across the game so far, and Fantasy is 8-3. It's just been a game that they are more than happy to step in. In fact, the entry has only got away from NIP once across the entire game so far. So if that's a trend that they make happen here on their defense, where they can step themselves in a bit, especially on the side that we want to see more contention on, that could be a bit of a moment. Liquid currently not under that pressure that we can talk about. There's the Sledge just getting some of the work done here, the removal of anything that might be tucked in, probably Goyo canisters, maybe a Fenrir, but either way, something to be removing, as the Twitch drone gets one more and suffers the end. It is just a full sort of, that was an attempt at bait, it is a full swing of let's get rid of stuff, especially when you've got the doubling down of the floors and the Twitch.
It is. But just time now. That is the thing that NIP have in their favor. The collapse tries to come in. Oh, but NIP have battled them back. Oh no, Pino jumps over. For no real reason. He could have sat pretty where he was. Both of these players were directed towards the VIP side. So he was safe sitting inside of prep. Look at him resets, and Nesk on Liquid have now a bit of a lifeline that they can play with, as obviously Hates and Wizards are going to try and dig in themselves. No Azami's left. Are there Fenrirs though? Oh, resets! Threads the needle, and look at this, a rock and a hard place. Or Hates and Nesk able to find the last. Oh, it didn't look good for Liquid, but Nesk and resets had other plans for NIP. Okay, Nesk starting to, as I said, get their teeth, get their fangs, get themselves in towards this game as well. And, although again the entry statistic went into the favor of Ninjas in Pyjamas, as proven by the overall round count, it is still not the be-all and end-all.
at this point,
Defenders, protect your
they're
bomb.
having more of them operate on a level. It's coming down to the line. It's still very weirdly paced rounds. Obviously, you look at how quickly they're able to get control of the top and then the middle floor, and then they started getting the utility done, and then it just sort of turned into a little bit of a brawl, really.
Attackers have discovered the
And,
location of a bomb.
you know, it's how they sort of structure themselves, the way the final position was played, brings back horrifying memories towards a certain clutch you and I saw earlier on in the day. But hey, look what happens when you run two players in from separate directions on it, Demo.
10 seconds to insertion.
Yep.
5 seconds remaining.
It's a tight game. Right. I know we
It's
had
a
like an
weirdly
8-7
tight game.
earlier. We had an 8-7 earlier, but it felt very, you know, kind of big chunks where one team was on top, then the other team kind of came back into it.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel as though any team is getting the, you know, the real edge on their opponents.
I think the strange thing about it is and it could be obviously that you and I are quite later on in the day. It doesn't feel like an intensely paced game. And I think it's always been a comment about NIP for years and years and years, as an org, let alone the players that are in it, that they are a set up and take team, right? They're a sort of get the work done, then push, then get the work done, then push. They aren't one of your sort of W7M Lobans crouch their way in. They aren't, as we see previously. But at the same time, it doesn't really feel like we are sort of throwing ourselves into this. It's chess played with guns.
I think there's a game with that, I'll be honest with you. I think
Ah.
I'm pretty sure there is some kind of
Gun
game with that.
chess. Ask finally
Yeah.
finds his first bit of bloodshed before being traded out, and there is Hates getting one more on the tail end. So NIP, once again, the trade game is set up pretty well. Now they're inside Piano. Are they going to keep pushing on? In fact, they don't know. Ooh, they had an idea,
Wow.
and they do trade it out. Very important one there from Diaz, but that just leaves Nesk and Diaz now, and all the NIP players have pulled themselves back towards the site itself. It's going to be a bit awkward here, but they do have some utility to try and make it happen.
Backs the phones. Gets his team into the cameras that... There's a BP. Or two. Actually, one of them's destroyed. It's just the one BP that they can try and play off. See a ping. They have an inkling that somebody's on the door, and Ness just wide swings it by himself, and a drop comes in. Somehow Diaz has been able to snag that kill, but Wizard is there with the trade. Nesk? Bit of a wild swing, no, just going for that.
5-4. And the rounds keep on trading as we get ourselves into a follow-up ban. What are you going for?
Probably the Izami has to be one of them.
Surely. Maybe, yeah, the Izami attack Kabatao has been
Maybe Dokkaebi.
Brava.
That's interesting, though.
We haven't seen a single Brava played this map.
Do they know something we don't know?
I mean, they have to. You would hope. Because,
well.
as you said, you know, they had the option of the Capital, which has been used a couple of times, and it's a very powerful attacking operator. The Dokkaebi was used in the recent round and can get a bit of a drive. They also dabbled with the Ying. Unless suddenly they want to start bringing a lot of Maestro and a lot of things that Bravo would just immediately counter against. Instead of bringing utility that a Twitch can deal with, bring stuff that they can't. That's maybe an option, but yeah, as you're right. Timeout. Tactical timeout. The conversation called. Now, can Team Liquid do what they haven't been able to do across either of the opening two play days and win more than one attack round?
As many bombs as they can.
Oh,
Immediately on the Maestro. Maybe I've called something.
yeah, I think so too. So again, there is tech. There's things we didn't know. I will say, we'll see how the top floor plays out, considering that Hazami has been banned, as has Mira, as has Castle, and they haven't opted to bring in like Clash would be really the last one who was like really good at holding piano. So attackers should find this relatively easy. They should. But like you've kind of preference, you know, with the Maestro being brought into play, NIP probably are going to be looking to deny as many drones as they can, and then probably play off just a sheer retake. That would be my idea. Because if you don't have any information, you're not going to know positions of where they are. You let them almost walk in for a plan, and then you go 3, 2, 1, collapse on them. So that could be options for NIP, but again, I just don't know. This will be a really interesting round to see played out.
Well, here's the drive. The Monty. Ask now, obviously. They got their first kill, and they're like, okay, let's try and play the shield game, try and get this set up instead. There's time to be wasted here. Attention paid out. The double duty watch of any roaming coming around the back. Last time it was a bit of a cut in the middle, so the two didn't really have anything that they could do anyway, but still. From that sort of beaten bit of safety, the shield makes the start of its approach. It's in and covered from behind and maybe on for the fight here across the top. The keepers are gone, as is any player in this situation. Now, they obviously have the openings. No mirror to play against them directly. It's just the Maestro bubbles. But they're pretty damn good at giving you a feed.
Plenty of window play, of course. Ask needs to be very careful as somebody's below, opening hatches below him. Maybe a C4 as well with his name on it if he's not too careful, but really the Monty is kind of in the middle of the trenches here. He doesn't really know what he can do, and it doesn't look as though there's many teammates around him to support, but still a Monty is a Monty, can still face check a lot of the angles that obviously people who don't have shields can. Fantasy now, being forced out of bathroom. Konzo will find Diaz. Ons also downed, and Fantasy gets taken out. Oh no, the Monty. Asking you to be careful, but oh, look at the crossfires. The angles being established by Liquid are too strong for NIP, and now they're essentially down into a 2v3 because I don't see Cons getting revived, and all this Monty is just forcing his way down planks.
I mean, that's it, right? Wizard takes a lot of damage. Good cover from Pino. But now it's a 2 versus 1, really, because Cons is down. The Monty getting in as close as they can, dropping and playing around the shield. Now the pressure is still on them to go for the plant, but Pino! I mean, what else really could the Monty have done there? Maybe close the difference. It makes things... But... Pino with a 3k out for the round.
What a game. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I mean, really close affair. You really don't know how the rounds are going to play out.
No, not at all.
That's how topsy-turvy they are, because you think, okay, they've lost that opening pick from the attacker perspective. You have a Monty who's just kind of there in the void, doesn't really know what he can do. Nobody's really with him. And then all of a sudden the collapse comes in. The Liquid have these strong angles as the Monty forces them into them. And then, all just out of nowhere, you know, Goyo gets 3 kills and just completely flips it on its head. Really, really strange game.
6-4 though, and Strange might be about to be ended, Demo, and that's that sort of problem we talked about with Liquid, right? Is sure, they could have pulled points from this and set themselves away from the bottom of the board. But that isn't where they are heading to right now. NIP separate themselves by 1 round for 3 points, and then from that point onwards, they can just keep angling up towards the top. They can re-jump Black Dragons. They can technically and temporarily potentially jump phase as well, and you know, they've still got a big game ahead of them later on. But NIP know that currently they are staring amongst that fight for the top 4, and this against Team Liquid, a team that has struggled to start, and a team that might continue that struggle is going to be continuing on.
Liquid in their lineup and still have the soft destruction, but a little bit more explosive though, with the Dokkaebi and the Ying being incorporated into the lineup. Just wonder if NIP can handle that. Don't have a Warden or anything. That would be obviously a great counter to the Ying. I have a mute jammer as well to stop the Dokkaebi call, so really playing on the kind of cusp of things. Their lineup is kind of more interested in trying to obviously deny with the Goyo. You still also got the kind of stop the backstabs coming in with the Malusi and the Fenrir, of course. Here comes the Dokkaebi charge along with the Ying Ho, but Fantasy says not today, Nesk, not today. Ask is able to pick up cons, but look, again, for Liquid, it's not a positive trade. They got one, but lost two in return.
A moment of silence, but you look at what's really left here. They've lost Nesk, they've lost resets, and now Diaz goes down as well. Maya and Ask. And Ask had a huge round before, but this time playing on the roll of the floor as Maya does catch Fantasy, who leaned into the fire and got burnt on the back end of it. A minute 10. It's time for them to think, but the Maestro cam! Oh, it almost got both of them! And it just leaves Ask left for the hope of Liquid keeping in this. There's one! Very sharp take. One on Bakery, and then one deep in the site. They are playing on contact with Maestro Bubbles to feed it. Pino wants them to enter and is going to zap this man as soon as he's in. And then swaps to a second one as well. They know everything he's doing. Oh no! Don't give it to! Wizard locks it out. But I mean, NIP, they find the edge. Liquid just a little bit too late to start the fight.